Welcome to the Savvy Startup Podcast Show. I'm your host, Irene Moore, and on this show, we go in. I share tips and strategies on helping you build a business, and I also spill the tea on what it really means to be your own boss, even on the bad days. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, which is coming up straight after this. Hello, friends. In this episode, I'm joined by Nisha Vyas. Nisha is a dear client. She came through our Savvy Startup Launchpad Accelerator. If you're not familiar with Launchpad, it's where I help experts and e-com owners launch their dream business. And Nisha is an ICF professional certified executive coach. She's a trainer, supervisor, and mentor, specializing in corporate executives, leaders, and high achievers in the world of football and sport. Now, what I love about Nisha is her mission and really to help leaders perform at their optimum. And what you're going to hear a lot about in this episode is how she helps them do this from a place of authentic leadership. I know we hear the word authenticity all the time, but there's something really powerful about knowing who it is that you are at your core and letting your values really drive how you show up in your business and in your bigger life. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this show. So if you're someone who's ever struggled with feeling like you are good enough just as you are to make the moves that you want to make in your business, then this episode is for you. Enjoy. Nisha, welcome to the Savvy Startup Show.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. I don't know who's more excited between you and I, because I feel like I'm always so happy to hear from you. Anytime I see your post, anytime I see anything you're doing, I'm like, sure.
Oh,
I do. Because you do such magical world in the world. In fact, before we jump into what you do, tell me, what is your superpower?
I love this question. I have reflected on this recently, and I've discovered it now. So I think before I struggled with this, but I've really discovered it now. My superpower is to see truth in people. And it's taken me a little while to get to this space, but when I'm working with my clients, I am really able to connect with what's getting in their way, and so I can help people become very clear on any of their obstacles in a very short space of time, and support people to live with the life that's truly aligns with their highest values. But to answer your question, in its simplest form, my superpower is seeing truth quite quickly.
Yeah. Yes,
And
I
that
love that.
sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's recently been supported by my human design, and I did a report recently, and I'm a reflector, and so when I learned that, I was like, that just makes so much sense.
Yes, I was literally about to say the same thing. I was like, well, of course you're a reflector. If you guys listen to the show, you know I'm a human design nerd. And I'm always so intrigued to hear what people's designs are. And for those of you who are new to human design, reflectors, I call them like the unicorns of the planet, right? Because they are able to see people, see their heart very quickly. And they are, as the name suggests, really a reflection of their environment. And so if you are ever lucky enough to spend quality time with a reflector like this beautiful human Nisha, just know that you are learning so much from how the interaction goes about yourself as you are about them as well. It's a really magical thing. I've had a couple of clients who are reflectors, and there's just a very different energy about them, you know? So you talked about how you support your clients. Tell everyone a little bit more about what you do.
Yes. So what do I do? So my name is Nisha. I'm a coach. I'm a life coach, transformative coach. I work with leaders mainly, and really supporting people to be authentic leaders. So working with authentic leadership, and essentially not just within a professional capacity, but as a whole human being. So working with someone in all areas of their life. And a lot of the time people do kind of put themselves into these buckets of professional and personal attributes. And what I really support my clients to do, especially the ones that are aspirational and have visions and want to move ahead, is looking at, well, actually, how can we bring all of those beautiful parts of you together in order for you to show up authentically, in order for you to be the best version of yourself. So that's one of the things that I do. I'm
Mhm.
obviously a coach. I'm also a coach trainer. So I work with coaches as part of an official coaching school and train coaches. And I'm also a qualified coaching supervisor and mentor. But my main focus on work is working with authentic leaders.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And, as a leader yourself, I remember when we met, and I believe that you came to one of the events that we hosted in WeWork many, many years ago, back when we had an office. DM London had an office in Paddington, and we used to host events for people who were thinking about starting a business. Or who had just started but weren't quite sure how to navigate it. And I believe you came to one of those, right? And that's how we met. Um, so tell me, if you want to cast your mind back then, what is it that makes someone, especially someone who, is in the coaching space, think, okay, do you know what? Now is the time. Now is the time. I'm actually going to try and connect with someone or connect with a coach or navigate my way through this world. What was sort of going through your head? Can you remember what was going through your head at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had, firstly, I very much believe in the universe and destiny and the law of attraction. And I think that I believe that you came into my life at the right time, whether I was ready for it or not, or whether I'd even been thinking about it or not. But I had just quit so I worked in the world of football and sport for over 12 years. And I had decided to take a leap of faith and start a whole new career. I won't go into all the ins and outs of it, but it was a tough decision because I absolutely loved what I did, but also it came with challenges, and I was really connected to my desire to be a coach and work in this space. To be honest with you, I didn't even at that point, we're talking 5 years ago, didn't even really know what coaching was, but in my head I did.
Yeah.
And so I quit my corporate job and I'd started training as a coach, and very quickly I realized that, oh, I'm going to have to run a business as well
Mm.
as being like, yeah, there's all this great coaching stuff you're going to do, but you need to run a business as well. And I
Mm.
remember one day coming across, because obviously there's lots of different, when you're in the coaching space, you see lots of different messages on social media. And I remember one day coming across your training, and I clicked a link to be able to just have some free training online. And I, hand on heart, even to this day, can say that the value that you gave in that short space of time for absolutely free was phenomenal. And it was a no-brainer for me to come and get down to, and then we were invited to come to that open day at WeWorks. And I came into the room, and very much like how I arrived in the coaching space, I came into that room, and just the authenticity and the sincerity and the value that you provided in that space for me was just, it wasn't really a thought about, do I need a coach? I just knew that I'm in the right place, I'm in the right hands, and what I'm going to be able to do with this space here, with the coaching as well as the business side of things, was going to be exactly what I needed. So I almost thank the universe for it, because
Yeah.
had I have been in my head about this, I don't know whether I would have made the right decisions. And it was almost just trusting my gut, going with my instincts. And I want to say thank you publicly for what you provided, because it was such an incredible space for me to step into so early on in my career, and not fall into some of those pitfalls that I think entrepreneurs can fall into early in the early days.
Well, thank you for sharing that and being so honest about it. I fully believe in the universe as well. I think that there's some scenarios when I look back at my career as well that I'm like, that was 100% presented. Even recently, that was 100% presented to me at the right time. And so I love that you shared that, because I think we can sometimes overthink it, especially when we're coming from the corporate space. We can overthink everything because, no decision is really truly ours. So, speaking of that, I know you work a lot on mindset with your clients, especially because of the kind of people that you work with. And I wondered, what were the biggest sort of mindset shifts that you experienced personally, when you were stepping away from sort of like being employed into being self-employed?
Mm. So so I started to work with you very early on into my to working in the self-employed space. And it was interesting. There were so many mindset shifts, but the very first one that I remember that really stood the test of time was to slow down. And I just didn't understand it. I mean, you're laughing because you might remember how it just took me a little while
I
to go,
do. I do. Yeah, you there was some resistance there. I remember that.
And I remember like I would be having conversations and like, right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I remember one day you said, okay, and when was the last time you had a day off? And tomorrow I want you to do nothing. And I remember the very first time hearing that, thinking, I just don't understand this. Like, what? Anyway, so to cut a long story short, I trusted you, and I was like, she knows what she's doing, so I'm going to trust this. And I remember, especially coming from the corporate world, we are wired to just work at this 100 miles per hour. We've got so much going on, and we're juggling. And so, in my head, if I want to be a successful business owner and I want this to work, I've got to do the same. I've got to work every hour God sends, and I've got to make sure that I'm just constantly on this hustle. And what was fantastic about this mindset shift was I was able to stop and breathe and connect to a part of me and a part of what we all have, which is this innate wisdom that you can only hear when you slow down.
Yeah.
And not only that, it allowed me to go, oh, this alignment thing really works.
Yes.
So that was my number one mindset shift. So thank you again for that, because that was through us working together and me going, right, okay, I now understand this. And actually it almost felt like cheating, because there was a part of me that was going, you mean I get to have the day off today? Like I get to just be.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. What I love about this is oh, so many things, but the first thing I love about this, you guys know, if you've been listening to series 2, I'm really, really inviting you and encouraging you to tap into intuitive leadership. And what you're hearing with Nisha is basically coming from her. Yes, that your coach is holding the space for you and maybe giving you some guidance. But when you really embrace slowing down, listening to the conversations that are going on in your head, understanding where they're coming from, so many insights and so many transformations can happen because they're coming from you. And that's really something that I think we've lost because we're all online all the time and there's so much noise. It can be really difficult to hear what it is that you truly want. And so I love hearing that from you. And yes, I do remember that kind of initial like, sorry, what? You want me to do nothing? And for anyone listening, that yes, that is a big part of it, because in the corporate world, we are rewarded for pounding that keyboard. We are rewarded for output. And actually, when you're running a business, you need to be solely obsessed with the outcome of everything that you're doing. Yeah, you were not just doing productivity for productivity's sake. So I love hearing that was a big shift for you.
Yeah.
Really
And
exciting.
and also just to expand on what you were saying, there's so many nuggets of wisdom there, is that when you do that, and like you say, you were focused on the outcome, there's something about then going down the right path. What I noticed when I was in this busy state is you're trying to follow so many different pathways that actually you end up wasting more time in comparison to that slow down to speed up, and allowing yourself to go, right, now I know that what I am following or what I am doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
And trusting that. And the other mindset shift that was huge for me was, it's possible. Because there was a big part of me in the early days were going, well, I'm hearing that you can run a successful business and I'm seeing that people have earned money, but actually I don't quite believe that to be true for me. Or maybe I might be able to do this, but it will only be a certain amount. And I remember there were so many caps and limits I was putting on myself. And actually the big mindset shift for me was, oh, hold on, this is actually possible. I can be a business owner and a successful business owner.
Yes. Yes, and boy, have you made a success of it. I mean, this is, I think, half the thing, and part of the reason why for this series I really wanted to interview people who are building, right? I know we talked about this offline, but I think there's so much out there right now that is just regurgitating the same success tips from the same people that are so far removed from what everyone is dealing with right now. And so for me, it's really beautiful to hear someone who's building and to understand that actually that shift comes from that belief is the most fundamental thing that you're going to need to process, continuously. And actually, when you hit that goal, there'll be another belief that you'll be like, oh, really? I can be a speaker? Okay. And then, I can be an author. There's always something that you have to process. It's like the imposter syndrome just shifts. It doesn't ever go away. It just shifts to something else, you know. So
Absolutely.
I love that you shared that. Let's talk about your business. What would you say, you've been running it for over 5 years now. What would you say are your proudest moments, the biggest achievements that you're most proud of?
Um, oof, my proudest moments and my biggest achievements in my business has been, so as you know, right from the very beginning, I said that I wanted to work with mainly the football industry.
Mm,
And that was something, so the niching conversation, which happens a lot with coaches as
mm,
well, I truly believe takes time. And there's something about, again, trusting the process and not trying to be an overnight success. So my proudest achievements have been, one, being able to expand what I do. So initially it was just like, right, I'm just going to coach and these are the people I'm going to coach with. But actually what I've been able to do is coach with leaders in lots of different corporate sectors. But
mm,
so I now work with some of the biggest associations within football as well.
mm.
And actually very early on, I got a fantastic contract through you. And I worked with, when I was working with you in the early days, and I did some work with Arsenal Football Club. Since then, I've gone on to do some work with the Premier League, Sky Sports. But in addition to that, I've also been able to work with leaders in companies like Google, like Facebook, like Apple, being able to work with some global brands, which again, once upon a time, I'm like, that wouldn't be possible for me. Or maybe in 10 or 20 years' time, that might be something I can achieve.
Mm,
And being able to associate that and work with associate coaching companies, that where I've been able to grow and adapt, and learn. Those have been some huge shifts for me. Also, becoming a coach trainer, diversifying my
yeah.
coaching business. So, so not just working as a coach, even though that is the main source of work that I do, but also coach training, coach supervising, and mentoring, and being able to adapt. I'm also now at a PCC level within the
Mm,
ICF, so working through my credentials has been fantastic.
mm,
I've now achieved over 2,000 hours of one-to-one coaching with my clients.
wow.
But the biggest achievement is just seeing the results with my clients, and being able to acknowledge, some of the journeys that you see that people go on, and hearing those thank yous, or those voice notes that you get every now and then from someone saying, they've achieved something in their life, and they think back to you.
Mm.
Those are some of the things that I'm really proud of to this day.
Yeah. Well, huge congrats to you for everything you've achieved. Like, seriously, it's no mean feat. And I know that there were times where, even though you came from a sports background, you doubted, okay, is this something that I'm going to be able to maneuver into? It is a very male-dominated space. And I just love how you kind of embraced it, pursued it, but also were open to other things as well. And I think that's just something that, we're going to talk a little bit about resilience and how you've navigated, the last few years like everyone else. But I think that's just something, that I've always really admired about you, Nisha, is that your ability to kind of pursue and spot and pursue an opportunity, but at the same time allow incredible opportunities that you feel are aligned to you to just come to you. And I think that's a really powerful tool that comes from that intuitive leadership and really knowing what feels aligned. I think
Yeah.
it's really, really gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And I will say this, and this isn't any shade to anything out there, but there is so much noise online right now. And the thing that I really admire about you, Nisha, and a lot of the people I work with is just that your commitment to excellence and your commitment to the industry. You are continuously studying. I love hearing your growth and the fact that you're, really continuing to do the different certifications. And I think it's such an important part of really the difference between someone who is a, you know, an online coach to someone who really is a coaching professional. And I think that's really something that needs to be said. I feel it's a beautiful thing to see, and it really does pay off.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. It's something
congrats.
I'm really passionate about. I think that there is um so much for us to learn and grow, and this for anyone that's listening, I really want you to recognize that this is not something that's putting anyone to shame, but it's just
Mm-mm.
recognizing there's so much that you can learn and grow,
Yeah.
constantly learning when it comes to coaching, constantly adapting my style. But what I'm really proud of, Irene, is being able to say that whether I'm working with an 18-year-old or actually even a 15-year-old student or a 12-year-old student, or I'm working with somebody who's a leader, or even middle manager at the age of 35 in a corporate business. I've even worked with people who are at VP level. I can now say that I can comfortably do that and work with people and meet them where they're at in different times of their life, in different professional capacities, because of the skills that I've learned through my commitment to professional growth. So that's something that does take time, but I really encourage it. And I also encourage people to work with different people as coaches. Put yourself in situations where you're able to diversify your portfolio, because that's how you're going to grow.
100%. Fully agree with that. So I know we've talked a lot about the things that you're super proud of and your incredible achievements, which I love hearing about. You know, it has been a strange few years for everybody, right? And I wonder, in those times where we're all maybe feeling a little bit more anxious, or things aren't going exactly where we want to go, what are the tools that you reach into in your experience to keep you motivated and to keep you going?
So I believe that there's a few things again here. The first thing is recognizing that we need to adapt. And in order for us to adapt, we've got to be able to step out of our comfort zone every once in a while. And so if we go back to the pandemic and what happened there, it was important for me to recognize that the virtual space is where we're going to be working, whether it's workshops, whether we're training, whether we're one-to-one coaching, and allowing ourselves to step into and work in different ways that we may not necessarily be comfortable with, but just allows us to try things out. But the most important thing is, again, I'm going to use the word authenticity. You'll hear it come up quite a bit when we're talking, but staying authentic to who you are and staying aligned to who you are. It's okay for you to say if something doesn't work for you. It's okay for you to recognize that one person's way of working isn't necessarily your way of working. So for me, it was really, again, when we talk about the noise, being able to block out the noise, go within and trust the voice within. So trusting self was such an important thing for me, and having those conversations with self to say, look, this is what we're going to do now, this is how we're going to adapt to things, and no doubt there'll be other challenges that are presented in the future, but being able to just remain authentic to who you are, remain authentic to what it is that you believe in, is important. Stepping out of your comfort zone, but then knowing when it's time to be able to say, actually, I've stepped out of my comfort zone, yes, that was the right thing, or it wasn't. The other thing as well is, and again, controversial for some, and not everyone really understands this when I say this sometimes, but I really do believe that we have a choice of how we are going to experience things. And now I say that with respect, because I do understand that there is a reality and people have been impacted and lives have been impacted and jobs have, but we can choose to live in fear, and we can choose to struggle through that, or we can make a decision and start to look at the things that are within our control, and for us to choose to live in purpose. And so for me, it was really important to, without doing the because again, authenticity is important, so without being fake about it, really going, actually, there's so many opportunities here. And when I shifted my mindset around the state that we were in with the pandemic, actually, I mean, it was probably one of the most successful times in my business.
Oh, I can 100% relate to this. 100%. And it's something that you do share sensitively, because that wasn't the experience for so many people. But I fully agree. And for me, it was one of those things where I probably will never, for our agency, obviously I've run a digital agency for over 6 years now. And so at a time where the entire world was going online, we literally quadrupled our revenue. It was just an insane amount, but it did force me to have to focus on that business. So to your point about really looking at, yes, it's good to be able to see what opportunities are coming, and yes, you might try something and it didn't work out, but also I think being open to the fact that, you know what, whatever direction you're being guided in, it probably is the right one. There is a lesson to learn there. And even though things are tough, I'm really open about, my struggles with anxiety. There is a power in knowing that actually I'm going to choose how I experience this. And for me, and for so many other people, and maybe to some listeners right now, that might be I'm going to choose to completely stay off social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too. Like no one needs to be reporting live from every single situation that happens in the world, right? That's not your job. And so I think there's 100% you're right in terms of you can choose how you want to experience things, but also know that there is a lesson in every single thing that's happening, good and bad, you know?
Absolutely. And also a wise lady once told me to keep an evidence journal.
I
One of my
still keep it. Do you still keep one? I
Yeah,
still keep
I
one.
actually read one of my old ones the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, so this is something for anyone that's wondering what we're talking about here is gratitude, essentially. Gratitude is something that is very easily done for anyone. I truly believe no matter what your situation is right now, I just want you to think of 3 things that you can be thankful for. And they can be the simplest things, like I'm thankful for the air that I am able to breathe right now. I'm thankful for my lungs just breathing, working right now. It doesn't have to be huge. So gratitude is something that has really helped me with my mindset at any given moment. And it's something now that's become a second nature to me. So I find myself, even on my worst days, I was explaining to Irene earlier that I've not been very well over the last few weeks. And but what I found is at the end of the day, the gratitude kicks in, and I'm able to notice the things that I'm thankful for, rather than thinking about, well, actually, this is going against me, or I've not been feeling well. But the evidence journal as an entrepreneur was fantastic because it allowed me to, in addition to being thankful, going, oh, and actually I slowed down this week and look what happened. And it's this inspired actions or inspired conversations, and someone will contact me out of the blue or offer me an opportunity. And it's so easy for us to forget those magical moments. So keeping an evidence journal is a really fantastic way for you to be able to not only acknowledge that there's all these gifts that the universe is providing you on a daily basis, but also going back to look at that and reminding yourself that there is
Yeah.
something that always has your back.
100%. And I love that you still keep that. It's one of the first things that I invite my clients to do, because we are always running at a million miles an hour, it can be, as Nisha said, really easy to not notice the gifts. Like I write down, if I see to get free coffee at Starbucks, it went in my evidence journal that someone, wanted to show me some love in some way today. And it seems like the smallest thing, but when you start to recognize just how many things are going in your favor, it makes those challenging times feel like, okay, that's happening, but this is also happening. No, I love that. So talking of advice, what sort of advice, if you had 3 tips that you would give to anyone new starting any business right now, what would it be?
Okay, so my very first tip that I would give for any new entrepreneurs out there, or anyone that's even just thinking about that, becoming a leader or how they can be more of a leader in their life, is getting clear on your values. So you have value. We all have values. Values in its simplest forms are the things that are most important to us, but we all have core values. So values can be in different areas of our lives, like work, at home. Your core values are the ones that show up everywhere. These are the things that just are important to you in every area of your life. And it's, again, you can do this independently, you can work with a coach on it, but just think about what are the things that are most important to you. And it might be that you find that actually freedom is something that's important to me. Like I use that because I know that's one of my core values.
Me too.
And so yeah, and so actually when I'm in alignment with the freedom value, with the way I work or the way I'm feeling, then actually I feel a lot better. So and actually aligning it to my business and how I work. So we can have anything up with core values. Maybe we could have 5 to 7. We have lots of values, but just getting clear on those top ones can really help you to realign anytime you find yourself going off track. You can realign to your core values. So some of mine are freedom, love, courage, authenticity. All those values I can check in on with my business whenever I'm feeling like, what am I doing? What is this about? And actually, for me, those values are not just important to me, but they're values that I help my clients align with as well.
Yeah.
And them to do. My second top tip is 100%, and these are not in any order, so I would say they're all just as each other, is self-belief.
Mm.
In yourself, like you can, and I know that this might sound cliche, but you can be and do and have anything that you put your mind to. You truly can. Trust me, proof of that. Irene is living proof of this. You know, look at this conversation that we are, you know, having. You're in Jamaica. I'm 5 years into my business, and 5 years ago, some of these conversations were just
dreams. Absolute dreams. Yeah. Totally. No, really, really great. Really, really great tips. I think self-belief is one of those, it's the hardest things to achieve. Because there's so many messages out there telling us that we're not enough, and that if only we do this, and if only we do this one thing. And I think there is an element as well of presence that requires you to really move forward. Because I'm definitely guilty of this in the past, is that, you know, you're so focused on the future and what you want that you kind of forget to enjoy right now. And it's only in the present that you can really have any control, but really recognize, okay, what is it that feeling good and success feels like for me?
right.
You know, so I'm a big, I love that as a tip. I think we've never had that one on the show, but I think it's a really important one.
I think, just to expand on that as well, definitely the presence can really be overlooked, like The Power of Now, those sort of books. Like, get reading, allow yourself to align to what Irene's talking about, because we could have a whole show just about that topic here. But one of the things about self-belief that I just like to share, because I think it was important to me early on in my journey as well, is not everyone will understand your vision. And not everyone will see your vision, because it's not theirs to see. It's yours. And I really encourage you to own that. Like, if you know in your heart of hearts that something is for you and everyone around you is saying otherwise, I really want you to recognize that you need to trust your gut. Because I was told several times by people to not quit and go into this, but
Me
I
too.
knew in my heart, great, Irene. So I want you to recognize that that's a reality, and I'm not saying that people are doing it with a in a bad-minded way. These are people that love you. These are people that care for you. They support you and they want the best for you. However, sometimes they're coming from we're all operating from our own paradigm, and if their paradigm doesn't feel like this is something that's achievable, it probably is true for them, but that truth is not your truth. And so that self-belief really does have to come from within. And going back to Irene's point about this presence, working on that and being able to ground yourself in the moment allows you to be able to go, well, what am I trusting? That's what I'm trusting. And it can only come from the present moment. So
100%.
I highly recommend that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, I love that. I love all of that. So do you have one more tip for us, for our listeners?
Yeah, my final tip would be, in following on from everything that we've been sharing, is get a coach, get a mentor, work with a trusted network. And I think networking is key. Being able to work with people or collaborate with people, but sometimes we can get swept up in other people's energies and other people's vision, and we can get excited by that. And I know from my own experience, sometimes we can lose track, but working one-to-one with a coach, working with Savvy, you know, and being able to have a trusted space can really support you to be able to take those consistent steps forward. Work, you know, and it allows you to work just as hard on yourself as it does on your business. So that's my other tip. Yeah.
Great tips. Great tips. Do you know what? I just want to touch on something, because you said something that's so interesting. I talked about it in the very first, I think, episode 1 of series 2, about how easy it is to get caught up in other people's vision and other people's energy. You know, because we all love and want to make, you know, changes in the world. We all want to be doing what we can to serve others. And I think it's so important, through what Nisha was saying about sort of self-belief and, you know, being in that very aligned to what success looks like for you. That's really going to help ground you to know that, okay, is this, you know, and I've been there, many people have been there, is this actually the business that I want to build, or is this something else? You know, so I think that's a really great tip. And I think when you have a coach, or when you at least have a network that can help you hold your vision, it truly does help. You know, it truly does help, so you don't find yourself sort of swaying and find yourself building something that doesn't feel in alignment to you. So I love those tips.
Yeah.
Nisha, what would you say is your sort of your anchor, your own personal motivation?
So I think, again, I might be repeating myself here, but I really do feel like it just comes back to my core values again, and
Mm,
use those as my anchors. So when I think about freedom and love and courage and authenticity and empowerment, all these things are important to me, but also, and they've shifted over time as well. So it's
mm,
something I consistently stay close to. But knowing what's possible, like I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've had really low self-worth, lack of boundaries. Um, Actually, I have to touch on boundaries, because even to this day, when I think about the healthy boundaries that I have in my life now, it's, I have to pinch myself, because once upon a
mm,
time, I wouldn't have even dreamt of having some of these boundaries within my life. There was no way that I would put myself or my health or what I needed above someone else, or someone else's vision or somebody else's comfort zone. It wasn't even a language that I even knew how to speak. And so, going back to your question, knowing that it's possible for someone like me, a chronic people pleaser, someone who has always thought that, gosh, if I don't put everyone else above me, then, it makes me a bad person. Those were the sort of thoughts that I would have, and then not even realizing that I had low self-worth. Again, it just allowed me to go, okay, so I know that it's possible for someone to not only transform their life, but transform their mindset in a way
mm,
that's gonna serve them, and get out of their own way. So that really is my anchor. I've seen incredible transformations with my clients. I've seen people going from feeling like there's no end in sight to thriving, like actually thriving in life. It's possible, living a life on their terms. I've got clients who haven't even been able to be in the same room as their parents, having these beautiful relationships with people that are so important to them. Speaking up, again, being able to, not only for myself, but seeing other people being able to say, I'm able to now authentically speak up for myself. I was working with a senior director recently, and you would not believe that individual, considering how far they've come in their career, would ever have felt like they didn't have the ability to speak up for themselves. And actually, this is in working with other senior leaders, always felt like they had to go along with what was being said. Through working with myself, she was able to recognize what it is that she wants, get really clear on her vision, and that
yes,
serves her tremendously.
yeah,
And so these are my anchors, being able to not just embrace these things for me, but embrace them for my clients. It's almost like something I can't not do. And my
mm,
other motivation that I really get to embrace as well is doing that as a woman of color,
mm,
and knowing that actually, the environments that I've come from in the corporate world, there was always a ceiling on my head. I felt like there was always a ceiling on my head. And if I had the tools that I have now, then things would have been very different. Now, there's no regrets for me, but I also know that those environments, when we have worked on ourselves and we've got really clear on our vision, and we've understood what gets in our way, our own limiting beliefs, there's so much power that we have in those spaces, especially in those environments that don't necessarily always serve us.
mm,
Um, and being able to find our value, recognize that we are actually incredibly valuable, and there's so much more we can do, and not putting those ceilings on yourself.
mm,
um
yeah,
and
yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
So all that said and done, my going back to my core value of freedom, I'm able to do all these things, but this freedom lifestyle that I get to live, that I heard so much about, I'm off in a couple of weeks. I'm going to digital nomad my life on different islands in Thailand, and that's something that I could have only dreamt of doing once
Mm,
upon a time. And so, knowing that not only is it possible for me to live in alignment with my core values, support my clients to do the same, but actually, dare I say, live my best life, it's possible. And so all these things really drive me.
oh, I love that. Those are great motivators. And I think there is something, especially I feel very present to as a Black woman in leadership, that I always make a point of it, even when I'm speaking, if I'm on a panel or if I'm doing anything on, someone else's platform, I always make a point to, really speak to that, because I think we're in a very strange time where there are a lot of limits that we can put on ourselves. Like, you can convince yourself you don't belong anywhere, to be honest, if you want to. And I think the hardest job, but the most crucial job that you can do as a woman of color in this space, is to remember that you belong anywhere you want to belong. And someone else's validation of that is not your concern, right? That's the hardest thing to accept and to embrace, because we all like to be validated. We all like to feel welcome somewhere and that we're being embraced. But it's knowing that, and not even in a pushy way, but just feeling very confident in your values and what you bring to the table, and knowing that you really do belong in every single space that you want to be in. So I'm glad that you called that out, because I think it's something that's a lot easier. I found a lot easier to do as I'm I work for myself and have done for all these years, but in the corporate space, it's still very challenging for a lot of people. So that's definitely something that I would say is, if anyone's like, okay, I'm resonating with this, or I feel like this is something that I'm struggling with, it's something to really think, okay, this could be a fantastic thing that I want to focus on for this year. Because the more that you start to recognize that you belong in any space that you want to be in, and that you should be taking up space because our contribution is super valuable, necessary, the more you'll start to recognize just how much they need you in that space. Right? So
Yeah.
I love that you called that out. We talked a little bit at the beginning about one of the first things that I invited you to do was, slow down, take a break. How does self-care feature in your life now?
Mm. Oh, it's huge. I have to be honest, it's a little bit of a roller coaster.
Of course.
Um, so I'm going to be really authentic about that. But for me, it's about giving myself permission to take myself out of my environment, to sleep, to take breaks. And when I say give myself permission, what I mean by that is there are days where I will do absolutely nothing, and I will give myself permission to do that, and that's okay. So I'm not doing anything on social media. I'm not going to engage in conversations that I don't want to have. So the healthy boundaries have really served me with that. So it's just giving myself permission to have that time to just be, which I was taught very early on through Irene. Also, what's been really great for me as well is recognizing, going back to that authentic way of being. I don't buy into the 5 a.m. club for me. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a fantastic club for so many people, but it's not my peak performance time. I work much better in the afternoon, and actually mornings are really great for me to do my lifesavers. So, that's my silence, my affirmation, meditation, giving myself that time to put me first in the morning is my self-care. So I can have a
Yes.
really busy day in the afternoon, but you will not catch me with a client really before 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, unless there's special circumstances arranged. So, that's my time. And I suppose I've mentioned some of them as well. So being able to meditate, be in silence, um, what so when we think about our diet, a lot of people think about nutrition, and that's all very important, but your diet is what you read, it's what you listen to, it's what you surround yourself with. So not having things like the news on 24/7, listening to podcasts, reading books, listening to this podcast, what people are doing right now, this is such a huge part of self-care, being able to feed yourself with this right information. Those are some of the things that I'm really keen on doing on a daily basis, practicing it. You fall off sometimes, but just being able to get back on the bandwagon. Don't beat yourself up. You've had a week where you've not done any of those things. It's okay. And also, Irene, I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough, and it's something I really would want to stress as well, is that as an entrepreneur, we have to accept that you are going to have to work hard at times. And sometimes that balance is not going to be achievable. There are going to be times where you are going to be working yourself into the ground. But what I would say is that it's about acknowledging that, accepting that for a time period, but checking in on it and making sure, is this now something that's become it's not a sustainable way of being. So when I'm not saying that we're always going to be having this lovely kind of like balanced life, because I think it's unfair for people to think that that's what they should be striving for, and then making themselves wrong when you're busy. You're a business owner, and running a business is not easy, and that's why not everyone's doing it, but it is going to take hard work and time. But just checking in yourself, putting in structures to support you is really key. But knowing that actually when there are times where you are going to have to go all in, putting some limits on that and saying, okay, I recognize that during this time I'm going to be going all in, but what am I going to do after that time to support myself, to re-nourish myself?
Really great tips. And do you know, the funny thing is, I always say to people, if you are looking for like that very like do less to make more, like just don't come to me. Like, in all honesty, because it's I think it's a story that is a marketing hook to sell a specific way of being and to attract a specific type of person. You know, as someone who like owns and runs multiple businesses, I can't say that this is the busiest I've ever been, but it's taken this point to be able to bring in team, to be able to learn how to manage properly. You know, managing in someone else's business is very different managing in your own business, believe you me. You know,
Yes.
and to your point, there's going to be times where actually I just need to focus on this, and that's going to require maybe longer hours. That's going to require me being a bit more flexible with my schedule. That's going to require me informing the people around me that I love that I'm going to have less time for this, but let's plug in some time to enjoy each other afterwards, right? And so it's having a grown-up view of business and life. You know, there's nothing that balance for me has never been equal. It's just been balanced in that time. Like, this is, as long as I can, if I know I've got a busy period, okay, I know I have to really commit to movement because it helps me with my anxiety and stress level. So it's knowing yourself well enough to be able to ride those periods. But to your point, also knowing that, okay, is this a long-term thing? Is this now become a habit? Am I now taking work to, you know, my laptop to my bed? Like, that was something I had to break.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, why is it coming to my bed with me? So it's like, it's having those really honest conversations, but also having having a grown-up view of business. Like, no one is sitting around watching Netflix and building millions, apart from maybe the person that started Netflix. But you know, it's I love that you said that, because I think it needs to be said as well. How do you want to be remembered when all is said and done? This is a big thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently, and I love hearing how other people approach this.
Yeah. So this is something that I am still working on, and it's something that is very important to me, and I'm going to bring back the word authenticity. And I really want to be remembered as someone who is authentic or was authentic.
Yeah.
And I do believe that I'm still uncovering that authentic Nisha. I don't believe I'm fully there yet. It might be that it's always a work in practice, but I'm realizing more that true authenticity isn't actually easy. It takes work. It takes having boundaries. It can come at the cost of losing people, or losing an old version of you. And not everyone is going to appreciate your authenticity. Not everyone's going to appreciate your boundaries. That's something I've started to learn to understand and accept, and go, well, actually, we're not for everybody. And especially if you are, you know, a chronic people pleaser, like how I used to be, this can be really, really tough. But I hope that one day I can inspire someone by being my authentic self and helping them uncover their authentic self, because we all are individual, and you know, God made us to stand out. He's given us we've all got this unique DNA, and it's, you know, why so many of us are, and again, I've been guilty of this, living my life trying to be everyone else, or following what I think is the right thing to do, saying things or being in conversations in order to be another voice in the space that we can, again, belonging and fitting in. It must all come from that. So it's so important for me to be able to embrace the essence of who I truly am, and be remembered for that person. And like I say, it's an ongoing journey for me. But that's something that in my heart of hearts, I really want to be remembered for that, being authentic and helping others to be able to step into their authentic way as well.
Beautiful. So powerful. I have no doubt that that is something that people say about you already, to be honest. So yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing it. Do you have any questions for me?
So I'm going to be really honest. One of my challenges that I have, especially going back to sharing this authenticity and some of the journey that I've been on recently, is expressing that, and then how do I show up. So what I've noticed that is sometimes I'm not as consistent on social media, and so my question is, what advice you have around showing up consistently on social media, because often I can find it becomes a full-time job. I can find it all consuming, especially if I'm balancing this authentic self and speaking in that way. So what's your top tip for showing up consistently, authentically as well?
Oh, this is such a powerful question because it's something that I think a lot of people struggle with. I've definitely struggled with it, and from a place of like overgiving as well. Because what happens, and I think let's just go back a second actually, because I think this needs to be said, is that one of the things that I really invite my clients to explore is what role social media needs to play in your business, because things have shifted so much in terms of what actually drives a business, and also how you need to show up in order for it to be effective. There was a time where showing up 3 times a day was the standard norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was standard, and that you weren't going to grow your account unless you could do that. Whereas now, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is really teaching simple but strategic marketing that lasts the test of time. So first of all, it's going back to, okay, how does social media actually help support my business? We know that it sits in the awareness, part of the funnel, but at the same time, it's knowing that everything that I'm doing online should be either offering value or driving people to an email list, right? Basically what it's doing, because what I see is a lot of people who are creating epic content, they're putting so much energy into it, but actually what their channels are becoming is entertainment. So they're not actually attracting their clients. It's why, I have creators, people with 100, 250K followers come to me to help them launch their business, because actually they've put something out and it didn't sell. Why? Because people see their platform as entertainment. And so first of all, I think it's being okay with saying, okay, this is going to be something that is purely for giving value, right? But that platform isn't going to be something that I'm driving, selling my offers on, and I'm not doing all of those things in. People will come to you and DM you the minute you start giving value. But it's just being okay with that and being like, okay, do you know what? This is a business. This is a business task, like sending my invoices. That's what it is, right? The other side of it as well is like being okay with, maybe I don't want to be quote unquote an influencer on my platform. Maybe I don't want to be visible on my platform. I'm someone who's quite introverted. I attract a lot of people who can be quite introverted. And it's okay as well to be like, okay, I'm just going to use quotes, or I'm just going to show up on stories and not concern myself with everything else, because the platform doesn't care. As long as you're posting something, it doesn't really care, to be honest. So there's that element of it. And then the third piece, which I think is the piece that I have found the most helpful, is that batching my content. Right. So, saying I don't really love doing videos and everything else, which is surprises so many people because I use videos so much in my marketing. But it's like, okay, I have a day once a month where I record all of my videos. And then that video is then repurposed across different platforms. So I only have to feel the pain once a month, right? And then everything else is just repurposed. And so it's those are the kind of practical side. But I think really the first step with everything is shifting that mindset from like, okay, what does this even really mean for my business? Because the interesting thing is, I take a bit of a break from social media. I take a social media fast at least once a month. People don't even realize, Nisha. They don't. Like, we put so much emphasis on this, and it really doesn't, for me anyway, it hasn't impacted my business in any which shape or form, because that's not its role. Its role isn't to bring me clients. It's just to, give value and share a little bit about my life. So I think the first thing really is just thinking, what role does this play in my business? Does it even play a role in my business? Because we all know that when someone is looking to work with someone or thinking about making an investment, they will come and find you on your different platforms.
Yeah.
And so, I would never say that it's not important, but I think, one of the interesting things for me, so especially when I get on calls with people now, is one of the things they actually say is, I love the fact that you're not just spending the whole day posting on social media, because I feel like you've got things to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's true,
Yeah.
right? So don't assume that, everyone is looking for that person who is, constantly posting, and that has to be your role. Like, be okay with, what, if I post once a week and
Yeah.
it's really valuable, I'd rather hear from you than
Yeah.
you posting every day and it's not adding any value to anything, right? The last piece of this is like, sometimes just have fun with it.
Mm.
Because really, I want you to think, what was the last thing you liked on Instagram? We can't
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah, that's true, actually. I can't.
right? That's how much, it's not that it's not important, but we've got to think in the grand scale of everything else we've got to do. Don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so many nuggets there. But I have to say, just going back to what you said there about one of the things that was coming up for me was this perfection procrastination thing. I think that's such a thing, right? It's like, oh my God, it's got to be perfect. If I do a video, it's got to be perfect. And I think that's one of the things that can really get in the
So
way.
hard.
Thank you. Yeah. That was so helpful as well. And also, I think you've just said something that I've been thinking that I think, again, no one really talks about, but you're absolutely right. Like, if I'm not showing up on social media, it's not that I'm sat here not doing anything. Actually, usually it's when we're busiest in our business, it's when we're not. But I also do get that my clients will come and look for me on those platforms, LinkedIn and, and through my website. So being able to make sure that I have something there for them to look at is key. But again, just, I love the way you simplify things. It's so fantastic and again, manageable.
Yeah. So do you know what? It's interesting because I think it's something that we support people now in the Savvy startup community, because I think it's something that really holds people back. It really holds people back, and it can make people feel like they're not being successful. I've had clients who are landing huge brands as clients, Amazon, to Google, doing great work with them. But the one thing they're obsessing over is the fact that they couldn't show up. And it really is, I talk a little bit more now about the impact of social media on our mental health. And I think the sooner we can give ourselves a little bit of grace around social media, and remember, none of us work for Instagram or Meta, right? None of us actually do. We can start to enjoy it a bit more, the easier it will feel to show up, even if it's once a week.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
really helpful.
Okay, so I want to know what's coming up for you. What can people look out for? How can they find you? Hear all about your amazing work.
Yeah, so I am, as I said, working with leaders mainly. And when I say leaders, I recognize that anyone's a leader. Everyone in my mind is a leader, but it takes a certain mindset. It takes a certain type of individual. So what I did launch last year, and I'm relaunching again, is a 6-month leadership mindset program. And essentially, I love working with people on a one-to-one basis. So this is a one-to-one, and it takes my clients on this transformative journey. I've taken my knowledge of over 2,000 hours of coaching and piecing together the pathway. So whilst it's absolutely client-led, and that my client obviously is able to come to me with their objectives, what I am able to do is, through this 6-month process, ensure that we've established a certain way of working together, and certain tools and techniques, and the format that I use allows my client to really experience not just a transformation within themselves professionally, but personally as well. This is not just about you in one capacity. This is about you as a total individual. As you know, I work with incredible leaders in the world of football as well, but my program is designed for anyone who's a leader of or an inspired leader of their life. You have visions, you have ambitions, you're aspirational, and you're ready to take action. So I'm really excited about that. And that's been, again, really successfully ran last year and running again this year as well from March onwards.
I love it. I love it. Listen, guys, I feel fully confident co-signing Nisha in the way that she shows up for her clients. So, if you're looking for that one-on-one support, I'm going to link it to the show notes below. Go ahead to the description, go check it out, book a call, see if you're the right fit. And just, enjoy watching that transformation happen for you. It's truly possible, so I'm excited to see how that goes, Nisha. Really wishing you the best of luck.
Thank you. Yeah,
Now,
for anyone that's interested, just have a look at my LinkedIn and have a look at my website. So we'll link my website in, and
mhm,
then just contact me if you feel that I'm the right fit for you. Again, authenticity. So I really want you to recognize that, if you're not called to work for me, but you think that actually this is something to do, go and look at, there's so many coaches out there, but I really encourage you to work with someone.
mhm.
If you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about, launching your business, come and work with Savvy. So for me, as you, just like Irene, we're really passionate about you getting the right thing for you. So I will
Mm,
be speaking to people and saying, look, this isn't the right program for you, but
yes,
I'm happy to direct you to the program that is right for you. So we've got your back. We want
yes,
you.
you're very, very safe hands. So
Yeah.
as I said, I'll link to everything below. Do go and check it out. Now, before I let you go, my final question is, what is the smartest piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Ooh, that I've ever been given.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Stay
about
single.
business, it can be about anything. Smartest piece of advice.
I just said stay single. um,
That's a whole other episode.
um, the smartest advice that I have ever been given. You know what? Actually, I am going to bring it back to business because it was something that I have been playing with for myself and recognizing for myself, and it is that look, as much as we talk about branding, personal branding, and being an entrepreneur, you are still you. You are not your business. And what I mean by that is when someone says no to you, or someone doesn't necessarily, hasn't bought your product, that's not you, that your worth is not wrapped up in that. And so
Mm,
one of the things that I, going back to the advice that I was given, was to recognize that actually someone who's saying no to working with me, or no to my, isn't about me. It's about the program, or the value that can provide for them in the moment. And so my I really want to share that with people, and for us to understand that our personal value doesn't come from our sales. Who you are doesn't come from how much money you have, or how many clients you have, or how many followers you have. Who you are is whole and complete and perfect and amazing, and recognized regardless of where you're at in your financial situation, in your love life, in any of those areas. They're not who you are. It just happens to be the situation or the circumstances you're in. And even when your business is doing well, that's your business that's doing well, but just recognize that you are a separate entity. That, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Irene, but that was something
no,
that
I love it. Yes, 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 yes. I've always been a believer in, it's really difficult, let's be real, when you are an entrepreneur, right? To not be wrapped up in the success of your business. But it is recognizing as well that it doesn't validate you either way. When we look at people who are now, what we would all agree, these huge successes, your Bransons of the world, they've had like at least 7 failed businesses before they got there, right? And no one really wants to focus on that because we just like to focus on the sexy stuff. But I do think there's an element of like knowing that, it's a bit like what we're talking about social media. You can separate it. It's okay. It's okay for it just to be work, you know.
yeah,
It's harder when it's yours for sure. But I agree. I think it's knowing that your validation comes truly from knowing who you are, and who you and how you show up for yourself when no one's watching.
yeah,
Right. That's really truthfully what you have to live with every day.
mm,
And I think knowing as well that your business is a reflection of you, but it's not who you are, right? If you're
yeah,
not, it's a reflection of what you're doing and not doing,
yeah,
right? But it's not who you are. So I do agree with many elements of that, especially the element around it not letting it validate you, your
yeah,
successes or otherwise. I do fully agree with that. It's an important
yeah.
point to make. So thank you for sharing that. I
No,
love it.
thank you.
Thank you
Um,
so much. I love this chat. It's been so good hearing from you, just seeing your evolution. It's just always a pleasure. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Irene. Honestly, if it wasn't for Savvy and being a part of that, right from the beginning of this, who knows where I would be. So thank you so much. I've said it a million times to you behind the scenes, so I get to say it
Thank
publicly
you.
now. But thank you so much for everything that you did to allow me to be here in this space and serving, people, and living a life in alignment with my purpose. So thank you so much for being there, making it achievable, making it attainable, and doing it from your heart, and being such a heart-centered coach and mentor. It was incredible, and I'm so thankful, so thankful for met
Oh,
you.
thank you, Nisha. That's beautiful to hear. And I feel it feels weird me saying the last bit now, but if you do are looking to build a business, if you are struggling with your sales and marketing, we're still here. Join us in the Savvy community. We love supporting, heart-centered leaders. We love supporting founders who are building with purpose. And so do check out, we do have a 7-day free trial to our new sales and marketing mentorship as well. So you can find that in the show notes. And Nisha, I wish you every success.
Thank you so much, Marlene. It was lovely connecting with you.
Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Okay, where is... Hello, friends. In this episode, I am joined by Nisha Vyas. She is one of the originals in the Savvy Startup Launchpad. If you're not familiar with Launchpad, it's where we help soul-centered founders and entrepreneurs to launch their dream business. And Nisha is an ICF professional certified executive coach, trainer, and mentor. She specializes in supporting corporate executives, leaders, and high achievers in the world of football and sport. And her mission is to have leaders really perform at their best. I think you're going to love this episode because quite often when we talk about high performance, there's a lot of forward momentum, there's a lot of action and busy and growth that we associate with it. And what we're really going to be talking here in this episode about, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What am I talking about? Hello, friends. In this episode, I'm joined by the wonderful Nisha Vyas. Nisha is such a dear client of mine. She's one of the clients that we came through our Savvy Startup Launchpad. If you're not familiar with that, it's where I support new entrepreneurs to launch their dream business. And Nisha is a ICF professional certified coach, mentor, and trainer, really working with corporate executives, with leaders and high achievers in the world of football and sport. Now, her mission is to have leaders really perform at their best. But what I love about Nisha's approach, and you're going to hear so much about it in this episode, is how she cultivates authentic leadership and the importance of that in business. You see, there's so much noise online right now, and it can be very easy to get swayed by other people's versions of success. And in this conversation, I really hope that you start to embrace ways that you can be more authentic in the way that you show up and really just embrace being good and fine and worthy just as you are. So enjoy.